Good evening from Manteo Town Hall. This is Town Manager James Ayers. I understand we've got a number of folks on the call right now. It's 5:04 on Wednesday, the 20th of May. What we have here is sort of an environment where we may have some folks present by phone as well. So what we'll do tonight is wherever we have votes and things like that, or establishment of quorum, we'll be doing it by roll call. So before the meeting's called to order, I'll go ahead and take a roll call by voice. And I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Selby.
Here.
Okay. Commissioner Mann.
Here.
Commissioner Burke.
Here.
Commissioner Borland.
Here.
Commissioner Collins.
Here.
All right, thank you. At this point in time, it appears we don't that Mayor Owens is unable to attend. I have word that Commissioner Walker will be joining us soon. So when Commissioner Walker comes in, we'll look for her on the screen and then announce it so that the town clerk can make note of the entry into the meeting. We also have some folks who are attending. Welcome to the general public who is here virtually, and we're certainly thinking about you as we go forward to the public comment section. So. It looks like our presiding officer here tonight is Mayor Pro Tem Selby, and Mayor Pro Tem, we do have a quorum, and I will leave it to you to call the meeting to order, ma'am.
Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order for the town of Manteo for May 20th, 2020. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem. So next up on the agenda, and for the folks who are listening at home, of course, the agenda and the supporting materials in the package are listed on the townofmanteo.com website. Item number 2 on the agenda is department head reports. So because we have crowd gathering restrictions, we can't have the department heads here at Town Hall. So what you'll have in your package there are written reports from all of the department heads here at Manteo. And I would encourage folks to go ahead and read through those and see the things that were done last month at the various department levels. If it's all right, Mayor Pro Tem, I'll move on to item number 3, presentations.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. So item number 3, presentations. These are for information. Item number 3A, this is town manager's recommended fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Now we have been working very hard with great direction from the Board of Commissioners and working at a staff level to basically reconstruct the budget. The first budget was prepared and then COVID-19 hit. So this has gone through a total retooling. However, we have been getting great information from colleagues at the state of North Carolina, the North Carolina League of Municipalities, Dare County, other municipalities here in Dare County, our sister cities, as well as third-party organizations that are both professional organizations or advocacy organizations like the Visitors Bureau. In the interest of transparency, we want to make sure that the public has an opportunity to see these documents and have a chance to think through them, read through them, and have a chance to speak at what is proposed to be a public hearing in just a couple of weeks. Those documents will be posted on the website. I know in the current era, a lot of folks are trying to do things online. So not only will we put the presentation online with its charts and graphs and things, but we'll also put the budget message. In addition to that, we'll have the actual budget ordinance with the numbers, the millage rate, et cetera. So in terms of the budget presentation, we'll go through this particular document. Now we look to our facilitator to see if we still have sound there, if we still have ample sound. All right, thank you so much. So for the budget presentation, some of this information is clear from the past, but from the public perspective, budget philosophy is ABC, aligned, balanced, and clear. In order to be aligned, it needs to be aligned with the needs of the community. Now, I know right now we are focusing hard on core operations and keeping those going so we can serve the community, whether it's picking up the trash, whether it's protecting the citizens, or whether it's issuing building permits, et cetera. Balance is by state law. We need to be balanced in terms of our revenues and expenditures, and it needs to be clear. And that's one of the reasons we want to put online. Our facilitator has provided a microphone, so hope we can get some better audio for those at home. In terms of schedule, the statutory requirements are to have departmental requests by the 30th of April, proposed budget of the board by June 1, and adopt the budget ordinance by July 1. Well, we've been attacking that. Our original budget planning retreat was in February, and our department requests in March. However, things got changed by COVID-19. We had to have a budget redevelopment, a board retreat on the 14th, and the recommended budget is today. We would project a public hearing on June 3rd, but because of the new state rules requiring that the public have a chance to provide written comments up to 24 hours after the hearing, that means the actual adoption of the budget ordinance wouldn't be projected until June 17th. Now, the structure of this budget is a little bit different from prior years. At the fund level, we have retained the general fund, the water and sewer fund, and the cemetery fund. However, the dock fund has been eliminated. At the department level, there are two new departments. The first is information technology, or IT. IT in the past used to be distributed through departments, but because we have a responsible department head, well qualified here, all of those purchases are going through the IT department head. Make sure we have good consistency across our platforms and our hardware and software. We also have a new department called Community and Economic Development, and that one works it initially started with our Downtown Associate Community Program, which is our pathway to the Main Street program. That includes that program manager, as well as the activities here to support local businesses and economic development. And last but not least, we mentioned about the elimination of the dock fund, and that's due to the fact that we are consolidating departments. So the Maritime Museum and the Downtown Marina will now be consolidated as one. Now, these are key points that are so important to our taxpayers. First off, on the revenue side, the millage rate in prior years was 37 cents. Now, the Dare County did its periodic revaluation this year, and we looked at the revenue neutral rate. And so the revenue neutral rate is the millage rate that yields the same number of property tax collections as the prior year. In other words, to keep it flat. And we've done that. So 34.55 cents. We're proposing to reduce our millage rate from 37 to 34.55 to be revenue neutral. I know it was important to this board to make sure we don't have a burden on the taxpayers, and dropping that millage rate was critical. The same thing's true with fees. There are no fee increases in fiscal year 2021. I would like to telegraph out to the folks out there, we do need in the future small water and sewer increases next year. For example, the water rates, and the state has notified us, our water rates are at a level where we're not eligible for grants, and we know we need grants to help upgrade our water distribution system, as well as make sure to replace any of that old infrastructure. So from a trend standpoint, property taxes are level, not being increased. Other taxes actually are reduced. We believe there are going to be lower tax collections across some of our shared revenues, sales taxes, those types of things as an impact of COVID-19. So we got to tighten our belt there. And then miscellaneous revenues, they are varied. Now we have some small categories where a few revenues, small ones may be up, such as building permits, if we have big projects like the new College of the Albemarle campus coming and other big projects. And of course, revenue diversification. What that means is we want to go after revenue streams that take the burden off the taxpayer. And two examples of that actually went out the last 2 weeks. So our town planner has submitted just yesterday for the technical review of a 330,000 plus grant from the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund to assist us. And also we'd previously made it past the first test for an 80,000 plus EEG grant. So every grant we get can be a chance to save taxpayers money. On the expense side, we want to make sure service delivery, all essential services are continued. You're still going to have the police, you're still going to have sewer and water, you're still going to have public works, inspections, all the rest of that. The only change that we're looking at service delivery is after working on the recycling program, we're going to do 2 steps. Number one, in dealing with the vendor, who is the current vendor, they have offered to do curbside service by customer subscription. Now, this is the way it was done from 2008 to 2017. There were approximately 243 people subscribed to that, and the people who've responded to that said that subscription service did work for them. But we're going to eliminate the curbside service that's subsidized by the town. What we are going to do, though, is not only make that available for those who want it, but we're also going to add a small convenience center in town. We're finding a central location so that the folks who want to do it but not do it curbside, they'll have an opportunity to recycle as well. In terms of expenses, special events, that's another really big category because special events are have quite a lot of history, but also quite a lot of expenses. So everybody's heard by now the sad news that the 2020 4th of July had to be eliminated for both the health reasons, the restrictions that we're hearing from the state, as well, and of course then the fiscal responsibility where we wouldn't get our money back on the fireworks if we delayed the termination of that contract. So that was a sad time for us and for many in the community. Also, another event that involves fireworks, that's the New Year's Eve event. So that budget has been dropped down from $60,000 down to $20,000, but it still gives us enough money to do the community-focused events in the afternoon and in the evening that saw a lot of local community support there in this past year. We did maintain the 2021 Dare Day and 4th of July. I know that folks, when the cancellations happened this year, they said we need to come back strong next year, and the budget's there to do that. And we've maintained those community events like Christmas events and community and children's events. On the expense side, the departments cut across the board. They reduced their original budget requests. And in addition, departmental capital requests were reduced or postponed to fiscal year 21-22. One example of that is in Public Works, having a street sweeper that can help us not just for the cleanliness, but also stormwater and doing curb inlet maintenance. That significant investment was postponed. Certainly in the current crisis, we don't need that large expense. Also, there are other departmental program requests that were reduced or postponed until next year. In the planning department, for example, they have to, by law, do the ordinance compliance work that work related to Chapter 160D, the new state law, as well as plan consulting. However, they had to postpone any new ordinance, so any big ordinance rewrite, the comprehensive plan. The state's given us a little more time on that, as well as the land use plan. So those are some big ticket items that were pushed out as a result of the loss in revenues. Other examples of things that have to be put out, the strategic plan and forensic audit, those are big ticket items as well, and have to be postponed. Also, departments cut all sorts of different line items, different reductions from supplies to training, but we still have adequate training for staff so they can have the professional development that they need in their service to the community. I think it's important, a lot of folks worry about projects. There are some projects to which the town has committed so we want to make sure folks are assured that these things are getting done. So in the general fund, the town common is one of the biggest projects we'll undertake out of the general fund. And that project, we had, of course, a $221,000 grant award from the Outer Banks Visitors Bureau, and we've got that agreement in hand and we're rolling forward. Davis Lot also, that's maybe a much smaller project, but certainly in a high profile place. So we want to keep that one rolling. And of course, stormwater drainage. We have in the fund the money to do the stormwater drainage work that was envisioned, especially work on the west side of 64, Agona Street, and some of those adjacent areas that were hit so hard in the past. Initial steps were taken in that area, but now we can go and actually do a full system-wide approach there. So that stormwater drainage work hasn't been forgotten. On the water and sewer fund, we're kicking off this wastewater asset inventory and assessment. This locates everything, from manholes to air relief valves, all sorts of infrastructure so that we can plan for the future to replace any of the old assets that are out there. And it gives us the kind of thing we can also pinpoint to the foot where things are as we have staff go out in the field to perform repair, maintenance, and other things. And the biggest single project we'll have this year, Queen Elizabeth Sewer Lift Station. This is our most important lift station. It serves houses and businesses, not just down by Queen Elizabeth. It serves throughout a good part of downtown. It goes to the north side of town and west of Highway 64. So this is our single biggest piece of infrastructure. And it's also the most vulnerable to hurricanes, flooding, and any kind of environmental hazards. So this one I'm real excited about. This project is big, over 1.1 million. But of that, we've got 600,000 in funding from the state at 0% interest for 20 years, and $500,000 in forgivable loan. In other words, a grant. As long as we complete the project and get it operational, we get $500,000 there straight off the taxpayer's back. So we're real excited about that project. As we've noted in prior years, human resources is a significant part of the budget, especially in the general fund, because services are delivered by people. And in our previous scenario that we first thought we would have this year, in terms of full-time employees, we were going to add a position and a half we were going to add a person to do project management, facilities management, and learn to be an inspector as well. Also, we were going to add a deputy town clerk for 6 months who could train under the tutelage of our current town clerk, who has announced a future retirement. We want to make sure we have a good overlap there to have the handoff. But in the current environment, we had to cut things. So here's what we had to cut. We've eliminated the dock master position. We've eliminated the assistant dock master position. We're retaining some part-time hours to help there. And we've postponed that project management, facilities management inspector position to a future year. And on the deputy town clerk, we've reduced that to just a 4-month overlap to learn the ropes here at the town of Manteo. In addition, this package includes a pay, in terms of the pay, it would include a 2.5% cost of living adjustment and a 1% increase for town staff. I'd say all town staff except for the town manager. This is very, very important. I wanted to make sure that we exclude the town manager from that because I want to make sure we focus on the staff who need it. And I had shared with the board in prior times how amazing the staff has been in attacking this. And when we hit the COVID-19 crisis, people were scared. But one of the quotes that I love from a former South African president, Nelson Mandela, is, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." As I looked in the eyes of my staff as this crisis came down on us, we've got folks out there who are tipping trash cans of every single house in town. We've got people who are delivering water services and collecting wastewater. We've got police officers arresting people, interacting with people, even folks who are inspecting houses, whatever. These folks did not let fear get to them. They've delivered these services. They've done it throughout. Heck, just the other day when Tropical Storm Arthur came through, you looked outside and our public works folks, they put on the rain slickers. Our police folks put on the rain slickers, and they made sure to keep serving the town. So I don't care if it's a tropical storm, Hurricane Dorian, or COVID-19, these folks are delivering. And I respectfully request that assistance there. Okay, so summary of funds, and these are some big numbers here for a small town. Our proposed fiscal year 2021 budget by fund, the general fund is $5.647,352. Cemetery fund, $22,000, and water sewer fund, $2,966,774 for a total of $8.636126 million. That's across all funds. Now, the public will have a chance to see some slides. We've got some charts and graphs. We want to make it easier for folks to see what are the big spends here. But in terms of revenues, fiscal 21 revenues, by far the biggest leader here is property and vehicle taxes, $2.143 million. That's by far our biggest number. And that's actually good for us. Property tax values tend to be more stable in times like this. We're not as dependent as other towns on, say, lodging or any kind of those types of taxes. We also do have some shared revenue stream, which is down this year. The one shared revenue of 1.369, that is, we project that as being down due to the crisis. We also have a fund balance appropriation that we'll talk about a little later, 1.050 million. Other taxes, 359,000. Interest earnings are reduced at 90,000. Other revenues, 339. Grants are kind of fun, 249,700. That includes the 221,000 I mentioned from the Visitors Bureau, and building permits and review fees at 45,000. Now, year over year, we're showing a slight decrease in our property and vehicle taxes. We went revenue neutral, of course, to try and level out the property tax, but we also believe there may be a lower level of collections, more delinquencies when folks are facing economic difficulty. Shared revenue, of course, is down significantly as well, as I mentioned before, down from, right now the estimate was 1.562 for the year million, and now we're projecting 1.369 next year, and that's probably our biggest single drop. Fund balance appropriation, we're a little over $1 million on that, and that's for the unassigned fund balance. We'll talk later about how we were meeting our requirements. Other taxes are pretty level, interest going down a little bit, and our other revenues do include our grants and other things coming in. So there's our grants, and there's our other revenues. We talked about building permit fees. Expenses, well, personnel in the general fund, always our biggest. And this one is absolutely our biggest still by far. We also are talking about the the property, and our property number is bigger this year than it was before, and that's due to the work on the town common, because that's a big asset for us on an operational standpoint or from a capital standpoint. Our outside services are pretty level, and IT and banking, those things are all pretty level. So by department, right now we've got two departments neck and neck with each other. Police and public works, there are two biggest departments by far. We also have behind them in a distance back, we've got some of the administration, finance, and some of the other planning and zoning. We got some other ones, but by far our people with boots on the ground are the ones that are the biggest departments. As in prior years, personnel is a big chunk of this. This isn't as big a chunk of our total budget. Right now, personnel is 48.6 of the general fund. It's 48.6%, but it normally would be a little bit over 50%, but with the town common coming in, those are going to contractors, not personnel. Now, this is really great for the town. Our fund balance position, we were able to balance the budget, yet we had an appropriation of undesignated fund balance or unassigned fund balance. But in fiscal year 1920, in the current year we're in, we had actually allocated $381,944 to be transferred to the budget. However, we're projecting that we're not going to need that allocation this year. And in fact, in keeping costs down, we'll be able to return $183,623 and return that back to the fund balance. So that's a big deal. So trying to contain those costs. Now for the upcoming fiscal year, we're proposing to allocate to the budget that $1,050,000 that I mentioned before, $732,000 that goes to town common, $100,000 goes to the Manteo Resident Relief Fund for utilities that was approved at the last meeting, $25,000 for the Davis lot, and we have some other items over $193,000 in the balance. But the good news is at the end of the day, after that allocation, our proposed fiscal year 2021 fund balance is 75.37% of the general fund. That is above the 75% required by town ordinance, and it gives us $4,233,897 in our rainy day fund. That is a significant amount of money that will help us if a hurricane comes along or another bad thing like that. Water and sewer fund. Water and sewer, we do believe there are some changes afoot on this. I'll go to our year over year. We think it's going to come down a little bit next year with some commercial folks who've, there've been some reduced usage there. We do have more grants this year as we build that lift station. And we're also looking at our fund balance here as well. The rest of the fees are very, very small in comparison. Interest, development, charge of tap fees, those are very tiny compared to the actual operations where it's a service. We provide water and collect wastewater. That's the vast majority of our budget there. In this particular case, we've got personnel is a big number, but the biggest number is going to be the capital again, because we're building a lift station and it's a big one. It's $1.1 million. So that will make that number look really big. And our operational side is pretty level year over year, along with our IT and banking. By department, the water and sewer fund actually has a department. I mean, they have an administrative piece. They've got a water piece and a sewer piece. Sewer piece, again, is the largest with that lift station, and then some miscellaneous expenses in IT and non-departmental. Because they've got putting so much in that lift station, their personnel percentage is down to 27.4 of the whole budget. Our cemetery fund is our smallest, but it's also one of our most important because it gives us the opportunity to honor those folks who have passed. And we want to make sure that that is a first-rate place. It is the kind of place where folks can commune with their family and loved ones. In this particular case of the $22,000, the bulk of it is sale of lots. Folks do want to be in this special place. There's also some interest earnings from there, as well as then interment fees that go when a burial service occurs. Now, our biggest single expense out of this, there's the proposed project to complete the archways there. There had been one completed before, but there's now a project to complete that look there, as well as some IT service fees for the software that tracks the burial plots, and some miscellaneous items. So we now have three funds. We're proposing a balanced budget, and we are actually quite pleased that we were able to balance it without going below the 75% rate. All right, so that's the end of the presentation here. We will be posting both the presentation, the the message, the town manager's message on the budget message and the budget ordinance. Any questions? Any questions from the board, or should I move on to the next presentation?
Board members, any questions? No, we have. Board members.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, so next up on the agenda, this is a presentation, but this is as much a presentation as a conversation. So what we're going to talk about here, it says business support activities, and the town, ever since I got here, the board has been very supportive of residents and businesses. And as we hit this crisis, we want to make sure we're supporting things. A little bit of background as the crisis started. What we have been in touch with not just partners and stakeholders, but also residents, businesses, and nonprofits, because many of them help. So one of the first things we did, our cross-functional team that included Carl Woody and Michelle Bunce, I challenged them, I sketched something out, and in 7 days, they had a working website to assist folks. So the manteolife.org website, in this particular case, it was intended to help residents, nonprofits, and businesses with all sorts of resources specific to their needs. So we had, for example, a continuing series of news articles, spotlight articles. Some of them are human interest stories. Some of them were about, how do you get masks, or what places is serving meals and bring meals to homebound. We're buying gift certificates, things that we could do to support local businesses and residents, things like that. We even had listings, resources for retail businesses. Are they open? How do they sell? Things like that. Lodging facility, who's open and available. Restaurants, how are they serving available? And also resources so folks can understand, how do we get business loans? How do we find out about health information? And we might be sure to get the links to authoritative sources on that. And during the crisis, this has been helpful. We've had a lot of folks. We actually got a lot of hits from folks. So it's not just the website, it's also social media channels. And it was funny, I think it was within an hour of posting the one about buying a gift certificate to your local barber or salon, within an hour, the very first gift certificate purchase. And so we continue to hear anecdotal stories like that. So those were the kind of things we're trying to do early on in this. But we also have to think long-term. And one of the things I would ask is I've put out there that we were originally going to Downtown Associate Community Program, go through a strategic planning process starting in August. But right now we need to make sure we've got good business government links. And we're proposing to assist local businesses in resurrecting their business association. So Manteo Business Association, or MBA, is a proposed approach to do this. And we have out on our website right now where folks can get a chance to start the conversation. So on June 8th at 5:30, there's a Zoom conference. Folks can call in, they can video in. We're encouraging businesses to join the conversation about whether they want to start their own business association. And that would include businesses, nonprofits, and other stakeholders. And the town has dedicated funding for this to assist with the startup of it. Already got domain names, can assist with website, and assist with promotional marketing. Marketing that helps all the businesses. You're on the highway, if you're downtown, if you're on the west side, doesn't matter where you are. We want to try and help all the businesses in towns, because they're employing so many of our citizens and providing those jobs here locally. So we want to help this business association in a number of ways, very concrete ways. We also want to help drive people here right now. So we've been working, town staff has been working along with some third-party folks. There was a wonderful consultant referred to us. We've been working with Visitors Bureau. We've been working with other stakeholders, Dare County, and staff, coming up with ideas for our marketing program. And while we're not pitching it tonight, we'll give you a sneak peek of our program to both attract visitors directly to Manteo as a destination, but also to pick off visitors who are already here through other channels, through Visitors Bureau ads or whatever, and have them make the turn to Manteo. So one of the things we're trying to do as part of this business association is to, when we bring people here, how do we get them here? How do we tell them what's going on? And one thing is to, for example, to set up these ads, set up ads and things and direct them somewhere. So if right now we're just testing this out, but if we have a program, Discover Manteo, so right now what you'll have in front of you is a mocked up website where if we drive people through their social media, through the websites, through radio ads and other placements, we can send them here and start telling them, you know, what is there to do here? And one of the programmatic elements, this was again, that same cross-functional team I mentioned earlier. They wanted to kind of do a series of things like bring your appetite and talk about restaurants, bring your sense of adventure and talk about some of the fun things you can do, bring your curiosity and talk about some of the affections and the history and things like that. So we want to make sure that we help all business sectors, not just one. Well, looking at this Discover Manteo website and then the social media channels that go with it, when folks are driven to this site, they can not only get a feel for the town, but we will give them categories, things like where to stay, where to eat, where to shop, things to do, all that kind of thing. So an example here is I click on the find a place to stay in the mock-up of the website, you'll actually see, okay, in alphabetical order, you'll see inns and hotels and motels and B&Bs, some of these great places here. And same thing true with restaurants and things like that. So as we bring traffic here, we can help people discover Manteo and say, that's a place I want to stay, and click and go straight to their website or their social media channel to make a reservation, whether for dinner, whether for lodging, whether a shop that they want to go see. So this is the kind of thing that we think is really important to let folks know, and it's something that we don't have right now, and some of our competitors do. Also, we want to give engaging content, so not just a static website, but we want to show people what it's like to be here. So here's a sample video that was just produced. It's only a half-a-minute spot, but it's called Bring Your Sense of Adventure. So as we work these short spots, these are the kind of things that the staff and their professional colleagues have been able to develop. And a whole series of these where you're focusing on different people, because you'll target a different person for someone who wants to come here for history or heritage tourism, a different person who wants to just go out and have fun with the kids. And we're also trying to make it very human. So, you know, the kid with the fishing pole and the fish with the excitement on their face is great. I mean, you come to Manteo and you're thinking about, you know, smiling faces and picket fences and fishing poles and charming places. So this is the kind of thing we're trying to get people excited about coming to Manteo, and we need to capture those folks and bring them to town. So this is just another example of what we're trying to do to help the business community here. Now there's some other smaller things that we're looking at here, and that is some things that we can do at a local level without it may seem simple. Okay. We may need a little bit of help on some of these. So we know that some of our businesses have been impacted by closures. I mean, direct closures, whether it's, you know, barbershops, gyms, or other places like that. And we also have some folks who had moved from the early phase of this to phase one, but are still not able to operate in a way they would like. Some of the things we try to do already is working within the ordinance. We don't want to go outside our laws and break our own laws, but there are some things that we have been doing already. For example, we know the restaurants right now, and I'm looking to see what the governor may be saying, because we know the governor was having a press conference at 5. Right now, the latest information I've just had texted to me is that we may move from phase 1 to phase 2, but phase 2 may be more modest than originally planned. Dr. Cohen there at the state, who's been briefing with the governor, the quote here said moving in the next phase by end of the week. So sooner the better. So that's good news. But they're also saying it may be a more modest phase 2 than originally planned. Still closed in phase 2, according to the text just sent to me, are bars, nightclubs, gyms, indoor fitness facilities, public playgrounds, and indoor amusement. The gathering numbers, we talked about crowd gathering as being one of the restrictions that's been critical here. the crowd gathering is saying still 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. And then open our restaurants and salons and barbers at 50%, overnight and day camps, childcare. So it looks like we still have some significant restriction on that. I'm sure social distancing, those things will still be in there. So some of the things we've been trying to do to help over the last few weeks is, first of all, talk to the businesses and/or the ones that come to us, try and figure out solutions within the ordinance. Some examples of that are, we understood they couldn't have on-premises seating at restaurants, coffee shops, ice cream shops, etc. So we had this great idea from one of our local business owners. It was so nice to hear an idea like that, and we were able to place picnic tables on town property. So it's in compliance with the law. We're allowed to put that on public property, and we were going to replace some of the old ones anyway. So now deploying picnic benches in areas that can be used by businesses. We deploy them at parks, ranging from the Davis Lot to Cartwright Park to the P Island Cookhouse. So make sure folks around town in parks and other areas have an opportunity to sit down, since they do need to get outdoors. It's been kind of crazy here. Another thing we've been trying to work with folks. We had another business owner wanted to put up a tent. So he was trying to anticipate going into phase 2 that they could have some outdoor seating, but he was worried because people would be baking in the sun. So he approached the town about a tent, and our planning and zoning board were able to get that on the agenda, and we're able to approve a conditional tent permit as a temporary structure, and able to get that. Now, it's only for the time of the emergency or the maximum time for a structure, which is 180 days, whichever is sooner. But nonetheless, trying to find ways to help folks who are thinking about that. But all of our businesses are not created equal. So, downtown picnic benches might help, but the folks on the highway, they don't have access to a park next door. So finding ways so they can do tents or outdoor seating and things like that, I think that's important. And we do have town attorney Ben Gallup here. If we get to that point where the board wants to have that conversation, we'll get that in a sec. There are some other things we can do, like on town property, for example. Old Tom, the section of Old Tom there over by Ben Reynolds Barber Shop, that's owned by the town, but there's a 7-foot section there. It's an easement that's been landscaped for some time. Well, potentially in this phase 2, could that person put tables out there? The tent example was a good one. But if we start getting into other things, we want to be careful not to violate the law. So you've heard other jurisdictions do things about potentially putting seating in parking lots, areas like that, to try and help restaurants that are losing indoor seating, give them a chance to seat outdoors and at least try and recapture some of that traffic. Not to exceed their original amount, but at least to give them some opportunity there to serve more people. I've got in front of me I just got the Dare County. Dare County just talked about doing some outdoor seating with those kind of restrictions. I do know though that there are other businesses beside restaurants that have been impacted by the limited capacity within their building. So we want to make sure if we consider any kind of a way to help people with outdoor seating, that it helps all businesses, not just restaurants. We want to see if there's anybody else who might need that. Let's say you're the candy store and you want to have some seats outside. They've got good stuff, sit down. We want to make sure we do stuff that helps all businesses. Also, signage is an example. I know it's going to be, folks are going to want to let other people know they're open for business. And is it possible that we, for example, come up with a master signage program? So we don't want to become the next Myrtle Beach and have signs and banners and arm waving machines drawing people in. We don't want to be that. And that's no offense to Myrtle Beach. It's a different identity. But I'm just saying Manteo is special, and then I see the laws that were enacted here that were specific to try and limit that. But are there opportunities for signage, whether it's a universal signage, welcome to Manteo, we're open for business, something that works both for the highway businesses, whether it be some signs, some flags, things like that. Right now, I'm hearing from most of the towns on the beach, as well as Dare County, have been trying to address this in different ways. Would the board have any interest in maybe hearing a little bit from the new town attorney who's been dealing with a couple of those, just a short discussion of some of the approaches they've taken for seating or signage? If you have an interest in that, certainly we have a resource available. But if you're not interested in that, I can certainly move on.
James, this is Daryl. The tents you're talking about, are they tents that are enclosed, or they are like canopy tents that are open up on the ends?
Yes, Commissioner Collins. So that particular tent was intended to be open. It was intended to provide some space for people to sit under either while they're waiting for their food or once phase 2 opens up to consume it. But it wasn't intended to be closed because then it becomes like that indoor space and kind of hard to have the social distance. Even if you've got a 20 by 20 or 20 by 40 tent, it would be really hard to have it enclosed like say some of the other places do. So that was our understanding. But again, I know it's a temporary structure, but if it's up for a few months, it had to go, our ordinance said it had to go to planning and zoning board, which it did. They were able to jump on that.
So they are canopy tents with no sides, right?
Yes, sir. That was my understanding.
They're not enclosed.
It's like, yeah, it was kind of like one of those special event tents and that we've seen used, well, like I say, at special events and with bands and things, or weddings, things like that.
Okay.
Any more questions? Do we want to let Mr. Gallup tell us a little bit about it?
The Mayor Pro Tem is turning to Town Attorney Ben Gallup to give him a chance to just give us a brief overview of what he's seen in those other jurisdictions to see if there might be some applicability here. Mr. Gallup?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. First, let me say I'm glad to be here tonight. It's nice to be with you all for my first evening. I wish it was more in person with the folks who can't be here, but I'm excited to be helping you all out and hope to be able to work with y'all for a while. This is an issue that the beach towns have all dealt with in various different ways. The Restaurant Association had contacted them about trying to do a number of things. And one of the ways that some have done it is through using their emergency declaration power. So as you know, each of the towns have allowed their mayor to, or their mayors have issued emergency declarations related to the virus for various things. And the county has done the same thing. And that emergency declaration authority is driven off of a statute that provides a list of things that a mayor can do in that instance if it's adopted by ordinance by the town. In our look at it, we think there's some risk in just using only that authority to make accommodations for restaurants that are changing your zoning authority. And the reason for that is because the list is pretty exclusive and it doesn't include that. So what we've advised typically for the towns that we're involved with is that the best way to do it is to accelerate a process of going through of making a zoning text amendment. And rather than trying to deal with specifics during that accelerated process, given that this is a situation that nobody really expected to be in. I mean, the reason why we don't have enabling authority that's really clear on this is because I don't think anybody had really thought of the concept of where we would be today statewide or even in localities if it was even smaller. So what I've come up with as a solution that is completely untried and or soon to be tried, but it hasn't necessarily been done anywhere else, would be to have some sort of text amendment for your zoning ordinance that in times of an emergency declared by the mayor, that the mayor could designate that the zoning administrator or the manager make reasonable accommodations consistent with the emergency declaration to the zoning ordinance. So the difference being that if you just act now under your emergency declaration powers, you're in a different, what I would call a silo of authority. Whereas if you go through the process for a zoning amendment, you're then using your zoning authority to recognize that zoning can be adjusted itself during an emergency. The biggest issue with that, of course, is that it takes some time. I mean, the statutory process for making a zoning amendment at a minimum is going to take almost 2 weeks, because you've got to put together something to get in front of the planning board, and then the planning board's got to consider it, and you've got to have a 10-day notice period before you can have a public hearing, then you've got to have a public hearing, and then you've got to adopt it. And then we've also got the additional 24-hour issue that came up in the newest legislation, if that's done via a remote meeting. So that's the big issue with the zoning. But if you're inclined to make some changes and to give some discretion and some authority for reasonable temporary accommodations during declared emergencies, that's how I would recommend doing it. The issue there being then that leaves a potential gap of maybe a week or two where that zoning authority may not be in place. I think due to the short time there, it limits the risk that's associated with using your emergency powers. And hopefully, like in the tent situation, maybe there are other means in the town's ordinances to deal with that in the meantime. I think, and Mr. Ayers can correct me, I'm somewhat new to y'all's ordinances, haven't talked to him about 1 o'clock today, but I think there is like a special event ordinance that would allow for short-term special events, and that may be a mechanism that someone could come in and essentially have a party in their parking lot for the time period while you're trying to get zoning amendment through the process. So I think that's really what you're looking at if you want to change it. And ultimately, the right way to change it is to go through the zoning process. But there are, intermediary mechanisms that hopefully can let you get there without any real risk of a substantial challenge in the meantime.
Okay. Does any of the board have any questions for Ms. Scout? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Next up on the agenda, item number 4.
Excuse me. Thank you and welcome to the town of Manteo.
Yes, ma'am.
I look forward to working with you and thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Item number 4, public comment. This is for information. I'll go ahead and do the introductory instructions here, and my colleague will be facilitating the discussion, and I'll try and assist. Members of the public are invited to address the Board of Commissioners on any topic. Public comment is not intended to require the board to answer any impromptu questions or to take any action on items brought up during the public comment period. Speakers will address all the comments of the board as a whole and not one individual commissioner. Discussions between speakers and members of the audience will not be allowed. Time limits are 3 minutes per person or 5 minutes per group. Please identify yourself and your location so that your statements can be recorded. All right, so what we're going to do now, and I hope the governor relaxes the restrictions on crowd gathering soon, because it's really hard to do this by phone, and I feel so tough that people have to hit *9 on their phone to raise their hand. So if any members of the audience, we've got 5 attendees on right now. If any member of the audience would like to make a public comment, hit *9 on your phone, and our software here will say you've raised your hand and you'd like to speak. All right, so anybody out there want to hit, if you hit *9, we'll look for you. See if you'd like to make a public comment. Third call, anybody hits, if you'd like to speak, hit *9 and you'll be recognized. Okay,
No public comment?
Oh, looks like someone just came on after I turned around.
Yeah.
Okay, so caller, the last 4 digits we have of the raised hand are 8264. So the moderator will go ahead and unmute you, and if you could go ahead, identify yourself and your location, you're welcome to submit your public comment. Thank you.
Hi, yes, this is Lisa Ortega with the Ortega's Grill. How are you?
Good evening.
How you doing?
Good, good. I just wanted to know, I know that we did just mention some of the comments on the outdoor seating, and we also were trying to watch the governor's report earlier, and they said that the outdoor seating is going to be considered by localities. So do you know when we can get some confirmation on that, or will that be on the town's website or something you would discuss just to have further clarification of what is acceptable with that 6 feet distancing? And we just want to make sure we're doing it all correctly.
Great. Thank you, caller, for your comment. And we've got your information and we'll be in contact shortly. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Uh-huh. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. Anybody else? Public comments are now closed.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Next up on the agenda is item 5. This is new business. 5A is to set a public hearing for the Town of Manteo fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. This will be the opportunity for the public to provide comment specific to the budget that's proposed for the June 3rd meeting.
This is Eddie Mann. I'd like to move to set the public hearing for the proposed Town of Manteo 2021 budget for 6:30 on June 3rd, 2020.
Second, please.
This is Richie, second.
Okay. Thank you, Richie. We have a motion and a second. A motion by Commissioner Mann, second by Commissioner Burr, that we have the public hearing on June 3rd at 6:30 p.m. All in favor? Do you have to?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And for the sake of the audience, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. So I'll go around. We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Selby. Aye or nay? Thank you. Sorry. Commissioner Mann, aye or nay?
Aye.
Commissioner Borland, aye or nay?
Aye.
Commissioner Collins, aye or nay? And Commissioner Burke, aye or nay?
Aye.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, it looks like you've got a unanimous vote on that motion.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item of business. Item 6A of old business. This is for action. This is the Town of Manteo Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance and flood maps. This particular one has gone through not just through the Board of Commissioners, also the Planning and Zoning Board, extensive public review for a lengthy period of time. There was one comment during the public hearings. That comment was made and the feedback was incorporated. The Town of Manteo at its last meeting, they were obliged to delay their vote on this ordinance to comply with the new law by the state that just occurred 48 hours before their meeting that required public comments can be submitted 24 hours after a public hearing. Staff is confirming that no additional comments have been received. Staff is recommending approval of the flood damage prevention ordinance and the plan consistency statement. This particular one is particularly tricky because of this change and its, of course, state and federal requirements. It actually has to happen in two parts. First, there's this consistency statement, and then, in accordance with the law, an actual Board of Commissioners approval. So it looks like there'll be a two-part potential action here by the board.
Vote on both, or would you like to vote on both one at a time?
Yes, Commissioner Mann. It would the Board of Commissioners would vote one at a time.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
As Eddie Mann, I move the Town of Manteo Board of Commissioners find the action to update Article 26 Federal Emergency Management Action Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance of the Town of Manteo Zoning Code to be consistent with the town's 2007 Land Use Plan. The following policies and actions of the town's land use plan support floodplain management through the National Flood Insurance Program, Natural Hazard Policies 24, 25, and 27, and Natural Hazard Action 27. It is reasonable and in the public interest to approve the amendment to the flood damage prevention ordinance.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Mann. Is there a second?
It's Commissioner Collins, I second.
There you
And
go.
second by Commissioner Collins. Okay. All in favor?
Great. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So for the audience, we'll do a roll call. So we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Selby. Aye or nay?
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, aye or nay?
Aye.
Commissioner Borland, aye or nay?
Aye.
Commissioner Collins, aye or nay?
Aye.
And Commissioner Burke, aye or nay?
Aye.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, you've got a unanimous vote on item 6A, the Town of Manteo Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance and flood maps.
Okay.
All right, second part, Eddie Mann, I'd like to make a motion that the board find action to update Article 26, Federal Emergency Management Administration Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance of the Town of Manteo zoning code to be consistent with the town's land use plan per General Statute 160A 383. The Board of Commissioners amend the town zoning code with a new Article 26, Federal Emergency Management Administration Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance as presented.
Okay. Motion's been made. Do I have a second? Anybody
This is Richie.
second?
I'll second. This is Richie. I'll second it.
Okay, motion been made by Commissioner Mann, second by Commissioner Burke. Manager, you gonna do?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. For a roll call, Mayor Pro Tem Selby, aye or nay?
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, aye or nay?
Aye.
Commissioner Borland, aye or nay?
Oh, aye.
Commissioner Collins, aye or nay? And Commissioner Burke, aye or nay?
Aye.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, a unanimous vote for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda, this is for information. This is Mayor and Commissioners' comments.
Okay, we'll start with Commissioner Burke.
Oh, okay. Yes, I would like to welcome Ben Gallup to the town of Manteo and look forward to a lot of progress.
Thank you. I
That'll
look
be
forward
it.
to working with you as well.
Sure. And I'm sorry I can't be there to meet you face to face. I apologize for that.
Okay, Commissioner Collins. Commissioner Collins, do you have any comment? Commissioner Borland? Can they hear
I
me?
don't think I have anything tonight.
Oh,
Appreciate everyone's continued patience for the remote meeting here.
Okay, Commissioner Mann.
Yeah, I'd like to recognize Melissa Dickerson, our town planner, and our town manager for putting up the veteran parking signs. I've seen those around town. They look great. I appreciate the effort. And if anybody has a chance to ride around and see them, they look very nice. Veteran parking places that are all around town. And I'd also like to welcome Ben. Thank you for serving with us. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Collins, I'll come back to you.
Okay. I'd like to thank James and his staff for presenting us a balanced budget that doesn't raise taxes for our citizens and also maintains a fund balance that could keep the town in operation for almost a year if we don't get any more revenue. And I thank you, James, and your staff for all the work you did for the budget.
Okay. I have no comment other than welcome again, Ben. Look forward to working with you. Thank you, Manager Ayers.
Well, let's see, next up, Mayor Pro Tem. Item number 8 on the agenda, this is the adjournment.
Eddie Mann, I'd like to make a motion. I'm making a lot of motions, sorry. Eddie Mann, I'd like to make a motion. We adjourn to June 3rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Motion's been made that we adjourn. Can we have a second? I'll second it. Huh? Can I have a second to adjourn somebody?
This is Jason, I'll second.
Well, all right. Y'all like y'all don't want to go home. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.